The Divine Code reading for November 27th, pages 345 and 346. We are beginning the chapter, Restrictions on Causing Suffering to a Living Creature. Topic number 1. As implied from the statement of the Torah, Genesis 1:28, and you shall rule over the fish of the sea, the fowl of the heavens, and all the beasts that swarm on the earth. Adam was granted dominion over all living things and given permission to use them to perform any labor or task. Tractate Sanhedrin 59b. Noah was granted permission to kill an animal and eat any part of its flesh, and to use portions of its body for other useful purposes. For example, its hide for clothing and its bones to fashion utensils. Taz Uridea 117:4. So we have permission. We have the permission to rule over the animal, or actually the instructions to rule over the animals, or to have dominion, however that's defined. And we also have, through Noah, the ability to kill animals for the sake of the food and for the other uses of the animal. Mankind was not, however, granted permission to kill or wound any animals purposelessly, or to cause them unnecessary pain. See, I'm sorry. The rabbinic term for such an act is causing of sa'ar ba'ali chaim, which is pain or suffering of living creatures. See Ramban on Genesis 1:28 and Guide to the Perplexed, Volume 3, Chapter 48, which explains that a reason for Abram and Mackay is because of the prohibition of causing pain to a living creature. Therefore, when a human does not derive a necessary direct benefit from the pain, it is forbidden. In Guide for the Perplexed, Volume 3, Chapter 17, Rambam notes that this is seen from the story of Bilam and his donkey in Numbers 22, chapter 22, verses 27 to 32. When the angel showed Bilam that he was hitting the animal needlessly, and therefore asked him why he was causing the animal pain. So if there has to be a reason for what we do with regards to God's creation, and specifically in the area of animals, there has to be a reason to cause pain to an animal or suffering to an animal. It cannot be done just for no reason. There has to be a reason. This is not permitted with regard to any animal, even fish, Sheretz creatures, reptiles, and other small crawling creatures. Here's Moshe Koshen Mishpat, Volume 2, Chapter 47. So, even the limb of a living animal, the prohibition of eating a limb of a living animal only applies to domesticated and wild mammals and birds. And within those categories, it's prohibited to eat the limb of a living animal. So a reptile would not be part of that, or a fish would not be part of that, or other miscellaneous animals. The prohibition of causing pain to a living animal. Pain or suffering to a living refers to any animal. It's not a short category. It's animals in general. We're not allowed to cause pain and suffering to such creatures. Topic number 2. If animals are causing pain or discomfort to humans, it is permitted to harm them or even kill them. For whenever there is an advantage to a person, it permits one to overlook the pain caused to an animal, as we see from the permission from God granted to mankind to slaughter animals for food. So, to the extent that it's necessary to cause pain to a living animal for a benefit, then the prohibition would not be there. But that's just within the boundaries of necessity that the pain is caused. Therefore, if a person requires part of an animal for medical reasons or other human needs, there is no prohibition against causing the animal pain in the process, if there is no other way to fulfill the need. Likewise, compassion dictates that if possible, an animal should be rendered surgically insensitive before it is subjugated to major surgical procedures, whether for its own benefit or for the benefit of humans. And today it's we have all sorts of medicines and that would procedures that would allow an animal, if there's some reason that it needs to be, some demanding reason that something needs to happen with an animal that causes suffering to the animal, the veterinarian needs to do some work on the animal to help it, or there's some human need, declawing cats perhaps. If a person's going to declaw a cat, the cat needs to be surgically desensitized, so it's not feeling pain in that procedure, because otherwise it's extremely painful for an animal. Therefore, it is allowed, for example, to remove the feathers of living geese if one requires feathers and does not have others available. It is, however, undesirable to do this because it is an act of cruelty that causes much pain. Rima Ibn Ha'ezer, chapter 5, Shokan Orik Harav Hilkot of Ovrai Devorum, chapter 4, Nimuke Kai Yosef Baba Metzia, end of chapter 2. So if there's a need for a goose feather, or even for a number of goose feathers, the need for it, that they don't want to kill the goose, but they do need some feathers, it is permissible to take the feathers off the goose. Now, again, if it's possible to anesthetize the goose first. I'm not sure how that works, but if it's possible to do it in a less painful manner, that's preferable. And it might be a good idea to time the feathers, taking the feathers off the goose with the time that the person eats the goose. But if there's not a desire to eat the goose or to kill the goose, it is permitted if there is a need for the feathers. It is forbidden to skin a living animal, for this will surely cause the animal to die while suffering greatly in the process. Hence, it should first be slaughtered and then skinned. If one needs only a small portion of the skin, which would not cause the animal to die, it is not necessary to kill it first. This is similar to the ruling of pulling feathers from a bird that we saw in the we just saw in the earlier paragraph, in which it is better when possible not to kill the bird, even if one causes it temporary pain. This can be seen from Tractate Kulin 7b. See footnote 15 above. So in footnote 15, it mentions Tractate Kulin 7b, where one should not kill a mule needlessly. Now, the Jewish people were not allowed to eat mule. Therefore, there would be no real benefit to killing the mule, or no major benefit. They probably could use the bones for utensils and that, but no major benefit to killing a mule. Or they could take the hooves off the mule, because the hooves can be used, I suppose, glue, for manufacturing purposes. But that would be causing suffering to the mule. Now, the argument against killing the mule is that there would be the destruction of something useful. So the mule is useful for plowing fields, whatever they're using the mule for. It has value. Of course, if you take the hooves off the mule, it's not going to be able to plow a field, unless they're shaving parts of the hooves off, which wouldn't necessarily cause needless suffering. So it's not really clear what it is they're doing to the mule's hooves that would allow the mule to still be useful afterwards. So in Tractate Kulin, that at least the way it's described in chapter 15, it needs to be explained a little bit better how it's possible to argue in favor of taking the hooves off the mule, that it would be a benefit over just killing the mule and then taking the hooves off. And similarly, we can see that it's being compared here to taking the feathers off of the bird. Person needs the feathers for some reason, and they're taking the feathers off the bird because they need the feathers. They want to keep the bird alive. So they're arguing that that's possible to do that, even though it's preferably not to do it. However, this is only permitted in cases of dire need, as there is an element of cruelty in doing so. Similarly, if one needs a small fraction of the animal's blood, one may obtain the needed blood while the animal is alive. And today, we have ways of extracting blood that's basically painless. If it causes pain, in any of these cases, extracting the blood, using portions of the skin, or taking the feathers off a bird, these are things that should only be done in cases of dire need. So it's not that the person needs some feathers for the purpose of fluffing up the pillow. There's some dire need why they need the feather for something. You need to use it for writing or something. They need the feather for a real need, or the skin or the blood for a real need, not just the flimsical need. Topic number 3. If one wishes to kill any living creature for the purpose of eating it, He has no permission to be cruel and cause needless suffering in the process. An example would be one who keeps live birds, and when he wishes to prepare them for food, he drops them alive into a big pot of boiling water. So, if there's no logical need to cause suffering to the animal, and in the case of slaughtering an animal, there's no benefit done by causing the suffering. Therefore, it should not be done in that way. It should be done, if a person's going to slaughter an animal, it should be done in the most painless way possible to reduce the suffering to the animal. And in the case of kosher slaughter, it's a very sharp knife, and it's the least painful way. It's definitely preferable over electrically shocking an animal or driving a steel bolt into its head. Those are, I would suggest that those would be more painful than using a very sharp knife across the neck, in which case by the time it realizes that it's dying, it's already lost enough blood that it's anesthetized itself. The slaughter of animals should be done in the least painful manner possible. If there is a needed benefit for a person to do so, even such as the case of certain creatures whose taste is better when they are boiled alive, it is not forbidden to do so. So it's interesting here that the most common understanding would be like throwing a live lobster into boiling water. And it's understood that that's a little bit more flavorful. It's not necessary that the lobster be alive in order to cook it. It could be killed just prior to cooking. It's very difficult to painlessly kill a lobster. There's some questions as to whether or not lobsters feel pain, but they definitely have a reaction when they're being killed. They have a tensing up, which would be some people would argue involuntary muscle. So if it's understood that lobsters feel pain, then they definitely feel pain either through the slaughtering process. There's no easy way to kill a lobster, and throwing it in boiling water does cause it to flap around a bit. So it does at least have reflexive response to the boiling water. And lobsters do have a nervous system, and they do have a brain. Therefore, logically, they're something we would associate with pain that they are feeling. But it is not forbidden to throw them into the water if it improves the flavor of the lobster, or the above example of throwing a bird. If it's discovered that throwing birds into boiling water improves the flavor, I suppose it would be technically considered okay, although improving flavor would not be considered the above argument that there needs to be a necessity. A dire need was the word that was used earlier. A dire need needs to exist in order to cause suffering. I'm not sure if improving the flavor of something is a dire need. That should be looked at more closely. If not, one is obligated to kill the animal first in the least painful way, even if this takes a little extra effort, since it is not enough of an excuse to permit causing such suffering to a living creature. See footnote 15 above. That's the same one that was talking about the cutting the cutting the hooves off a mule while it's alive. It is explained in Sefer HaChinuch and Ran that the prohibition of causing pain to an animal also exists where one kills the animal in an unnecessarily cruel way. Only when there is a necessary benefit for humans is one not obligated to take the pain caused into account, and even when it is preferable to take the pain into account. And even then, it is preferable to take the pain into account. So, in the case of throwing an animal into live into boiling water, the question would be: is it a necessary benefit? The little extra flavor that comes, is it necessary? And if it is necessary, there should still be a way found to reduce the pain. That still needs to be a consideration into the action. Thank you.